We need to welcome everyone. Thanks for being here on this chilly day. It's supposed to get to the high of 33. We're rocking. So now just make everything a little bit icier. So just remember that as you're driving home. Anyway, we welcome our IT committee, and we welcome Bob Murphy. He's going to help us be cybersecurity experts. Did you want to speak first, Alan? No? Yes? Okay. All right. Welcome to committee. Thanks for being here.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the committee. Thank you for having me this morning. Today we're going to go through the 2024 Security and Awareness Training for the Legislature. This is the training that all the staff have gone through. And I will say this is very basic training, but when you look at the fact the number one point of failure in any IT system is your people. And that's always going to be true no matter what technologies you have, no matter how many layers of defense you have in place. If someone gives up the goat, then you're in trouble. So this keeps it very basic and goes through basic principles that we need to follow in accordance with the ITech standards, which are established by the Information Technology Council, currently being revised, but last revised in 2019. If you could go to the slideshow. Okay, you don't. It's not going to broadcast up here. It's plugged in.
Yes. This is, Bob, the question is, Representative Turner has a question for you. Why I'd be repeating it, I don't know.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was just wondering, is this a draft? Is this final? And you said something about it's already been applied to some administrative folks. Where are we at? And are we just kind of reviewing this, or is there opportunity for input, or is this finalized? Thank you.
Representative Turner, there's always opportunity for input. I can make changes at any point in time. But it is the finalized training that everybody has received so far in 2024 as far as staff, IT staff, tech staff, everything like that. So. I think I need to change this to my main display, probably. We up there? Yeah, it's on there. There we go. All right, so this is the cottage core version, as you can see by the slides of the 2024 Security and Awareness Training. Just to introduce myself again, I'm Bob Murphy. I have 8 years in the Army working in communications and information security, a bachelor's degree in cybersecurity, and a master's degree in cybercrime and digital investigations. Today we're going to discuss passwords, privacy and proper handling of sensitive information, physical security, social engineering, phishing, and malware. Also reporting and the acceptable use policy. We're going to start off with passwords, which are going to be your first line of defense. I don't know why there's transitions in this. All right, so first off is your password visibility and sharing. This essentially has to do with not sharing your passwords with anyone, office assistants, committee assistants, friends, neighbors, anything like that. We also don't want to write those passwords down. You leave your office for a couple minutes and someone walks in and you've got a password written down on a sticky note and they say, well, hey, let me just copy this down, take a picture of it. It used to be things took a little bit longer to do, if you had to write it down, but now you can just pull out a smartphone and take a picture. So we also want to keep that stuff to ourselves. There are different applications that you can use for password protection. We don't have an official one that we use at the legislature, but things like LastPass, OnePass, Bitwarden are all very safe, and they'll allow you to store those passwords securely and also do things like autofill or send them via encryption, which is the state of Kansas standard. So those are the kind of things you want to use as opposed to sticky notes. And again, really for your personal government accounts, we really don't want to share that password with anyone. All of your OAs and CAs will have delegated access to your mailboxes, so they do not need they should not need your password for anything to get onto your computer or anything like that, because they will have access to the information that they need to have access to. We also don't want to send your password over email. I know this happens a lot with committee assistants, because there's some committee things that have passwords, or they may need passwords to OneDrive or Dropbox. We want to make sure we don't send those over email. Essentially, if there's some kind of man-in-the-middle attack, if somebody's sniffing our emails or looking at that kind of thing, if it's unencrypted communication, all they have to do is kind of get right in the middle, look at it real quick, and then they are good to go with whatever that password is for whatever it is. And usually when you send a password, you're not just sending a password, you're usually also sending your username. And so they will also have your username, and that kind of brings us into another point, which is don't reuse your passwords. I'm going to skip across the aisle here, because if somebody gets that password once, essentially what they're going to do when they attack you is they're going to say, okay, Representative Robinson, I have his password for Gmail. So then they're going to try that password on everything that they can think of. So they're going to do a search for you. They're going to find every public-facing email address they can, so your government email address, any Gmail addresses, Facebook, Instagram, anything like that. And the very first step they're going to take in that attack is they're going to take that password that they have and they're going to apply it to all of those different accounts and see which ones they can get into. So that's why we definitely don't want to reuse the passwords. And then we'll go back to the middle here and talk about the password requirements. We do have a minimum of 12 characters. That will be increasing to 14. Essentially, when you have a 12-character password, you're looking at about 254 million years for a piece of brute force software to be able to hack into that password. Now, if you take that down to 8, you're looking at you take that down to a matter of weeks, and that's with all possible combinations, including capital letters. As you can see here, that's one of our requirements as well. Your password has to contain an uppercase letter, a lowercase letter, a number, and a non-alphanumeric character. So non-alphanumeric characters are going to be @, exclamation point, $, things like that. You don't want to include any of your user IDs, first name, last name, or any personal information. So again, when somebody is trying to get into a government account specifically, they're going to search for whatever information they can find on you, and they're going to look for children's names, grandchildren's names, where you grew up, different things like that. So if you use those those just become easily guessable when it comes to your password. So say you use your grandchild's name or date of birth, and they're able to find that information on the internet. That's the first thing that they're going to try when they run their software to try to get into your account. So we don't want to use anything like that or any kind of personally identifiable information. Especially a lot of people will use the last 4 digits of their social security number as part of their password because they think it's secure. Not a lot of people have access to it. Again, that's going to be one of your most common things that are looked at when somebody is trying to get into your account. You also don't want to include context-specific words. So a lot of people will do this too, especially they'll think, okay, my password's going to be more secure because I'm going to use a password like this, Legislature 2024 for the legislature, or Google 2024 for Google, or whatever the account may be, because it also makes it easier to remember, but it's also much easier to guess. So essentially what hackers do when they're trying to get into your password, there's a tool called a rainbow table, and essentially what a rainbow table is, it's a list of all of the hashes of commonly used passwords. So when they're trying to get into your account, they put that rainbow table into their software. So it'll have things like password 1234, context-specific things like this, depending on what they're trying to get into, and it will run it against all those passwords immediately. Now, they already have those password values, so when you're talking time to get into an account, you're talking less than 20 minutes to get into your account when they have a rainbow table available. And unfortunately, since there's so many bad actors out there, they're constantly updating these tables and constantly putting out new versions with new commonly used passwords, which is why we want to encourage you to use passphrases with spaces, blank spaces in between, or nonsense phrases, something like gummy bears are delicious, or something that's really not easy to guess and not context specific and has a lot of opportunity for you to kind of switch letters around, even use common misspellings. You just have to be able to remember it, and that's the important thing. Yes. So that brings us into the what we're trying to do here with the multi-factor authentication when we're talking passwords. So the goal is once you have that really secure password and you have it once, most of your accounts are going to allow you to enable multi-factor authentication, which will probably either require you to answer a prompt on your phone or download an app to your phone. The good thing about this is you can save your passwords and you only have to remember that password once, because what you'll get is what's called a one-time password or an OTP sent to you by that authenticator app, and that will only be good for that single login. So you remember that password one time, you save that information into your system, and then every time you go to log in after that, it's going to send you a password to a trusted device, or a passcode, 4 to 6, maybe 8 numbers. And you won't have to remember that password every time. You just need it to be good that one time, and you also have that second layer of protection because they would have to have your phone as well to be able to get into your account. So that's what we're going to institute here at the legislature with everyone's computers. We're going to enable MFA with a PIN code. So you will have to have that one complex password, but then you're only going to have a PIN to get into your computer. And the cool thing about Windows Hello is it makes that second factor for your multi-factor authentication in your computer. So even if you do accidentally give out your username and password in a phishing email, they also have to have your computer to be able to get into your account. And it's the same way with any kind of multi-factor authentication. If you have it enabled and you accidentally give away your username and password, they have to have, essentially your multi-factor is something something you have, or things like that. So if they don't have both of those pieces and they know your password, it's going to protect your account even more. So we also don't want to use repeating numbers and characters and passwords. That just makes it a lot easier to guess. That would be 11, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Going backwards is the same thing. Or just one of the really common ones is hitting the shift key and going across the top row of your keyboard, releasing the shift key, going across the next row, and doing that. People think, well, it's really complicated because it's a lot of letters. It's going to be impossible to guess, but people do that all the time. So it's one of those common ones. Any combination of straight across, up and down on your keyboard is going to be in a rainbow table, and it's going to be easily guessable. So we want to avoid those. So another password requirement is that whenever you reset your password, it has to be different than the previous 24 passwords. So that's your password life. So your password has a life of essentially, we'll say 24. We'll use it in years, 25 years. So anytime you reset your password, you're going to have to change it 24 times before you can reuse the same password over again. Now, that doesn't mean that you can reset it 24 times in one day to get back to the same password, because we do have maximum limits on the number of times you can reset a password in a day set, and that's set to 1 password reset a day without coming to contact us first. So we can always get in and reset it anytime you need, but when you're using your AD Self-Service Plus or any of your own password reset capabilities, you can only reset that once a day. And that's to to kind of keep that from help you from forgetting that password over and over again, or from reusing those same passwords and everything like that. And then we do have a password change requirement of every 180 days, which means every 6 months, whatever's happened, whether you've had no security breaches, in any situation, you are going to have to change that password. So next we're going to talk about another important thing, which is privacy and information handling. This has to do with ITEC 8010A, and this is how you're going to classify the information that you use and see and work with every day, such as constituent information, bill information, things like that. So state of Kansas has 3 different information classifications: public information, private information, and restricted information. Data is classified as public essentially when the release of that data would cause no kind of harm or disruption to the legislature or the citizens of Kansas. Private data is data that if it's disclosed, altered, destroyed unintentionally, it may cause some harm to the citizens of Kansas or the organization. And restricted data, if it's released, disclosed, altered, anything like that, that's going to cause catastrophic or major harm to the organization or the citizens of Kansas. So one of the handouts you've got is Kansas Information Classification Guidelines. These are directly from ITEC 8010-Alpha. When you're looking at your information classifications, if you want to keep this with you, this is a good way to look at it. It's going to show you different impact levels, and it follows what's called the CIA triad in cybersecurity, which is confidentiality, availability, and I'm drawing a blank on the I, integrity of information. So those are your 3 pillars of data protection, the things that you want to protect no matter what when you're dealing with data. And as you can see, it's in a matrix format, so you can kind of look across and see what would be a low risk, what would be a medium risk, what would be a high risk, and you're going to take all 3 of those categories, the confidentiality, integrity, and availability, and then you're going to go across the matrix and you're going to decide, based on the information you have, how the release of that information would impact the legislature and the citizens of Kansas. And you can kind of do a math problem is the easiest way to do it. If you have more highs than anything else, you're going to want to classify that as restricted. If you're medium high, you may want to go restricted or private. If you're all medium, private. So it's a pretty good guide, and then you've also got some data examples on the bottom. And if you want to view this, this is available on the ebit.ks.gov, along with the rest of the policy, and that's ITEC 8010-Alpha. So more with the privacy and information handling. Of course, you always want to observe any ethical restrictions, laws, or policies for accessing, using, or disclosing any of this information. You want to respect the confidentiality and privacy of restricted data. Don't access restricted information without permission from the information owner. This is a big one, especially with your OAs and CAs, because they will have delegated access to your mailboxes. So you need to make sure that if there is information in your mailbox that you do not want them to have access to, you inform them of that, or via email, some kind of communication saying do not access this information, whatever that information may be, just to make sure that there's not any unauthorized disclosure, because as much as we trust the people that we work with, you really don't know. Again, we go back to this, your number one point of failure is going to be your people. So if somebody doesn't know that a piece of information isn't theirs to look at, there's a chance they'll look at it, and there's a chance they could talk to their friends about it at lunch or somebody else in the building. You never know. So you always want to make sure that you label that and let your CAs and OAs know. And if they have permission to access that information, let them know that as well. We also, as much as possible, want to keep restricted information within the building. So if you have a big one with this is, what I like to say for information classification and what I told all the OAs and CAs, if you're dealing with any constituent information, you classify that as restricted, because the last thing we want to do is have somebody's personal information get out to everybody. Somebody who trusts, us working for the state, you all as legislators, we don't want their information accidentally released. So if you're dealing with constituent information, make sure it stays in the building unless you've taken, received permission from the information owner, which in this case would be the constituent. If they say, I don't mind. We would like to keep that as much as possible, keep that information in here. There's a lot of stuff going on in your personal lives, at your homes, in the environments you're in that's not controlled. Yes, Madam Chair.
Yes, Representative Carpenter has a question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So similarly, we have very similar classifications within the military: confidential, secret, top secret. And when we classify those emails within Outlook, it basically, you can put it in the headers, footers, that type of stuff. Are you foreseeing something moving forward as we are working on constituent information where you guys are putting those types of restricted tags within the emails, or is that just for our knowledge, just, hey, this is restricted information, don't distribute, or are you guys going to be seeking to put those types of tags within our emails?
So we don't have a clear enough. We don't scan the emails for content right now. So that would be on whoever whoever receives the email. If we start looking at something that specifically like we scan for hashes or malicious links, things like that, but we're not looking at the contents of the email, and I don't know if we ever will because of privacy concerns. But if we do going forward, that would be something that we could look at. But right now, the reason it's in the training and in the ITech training is so we can inform information owners, whoever receives the email, to do that classification themselves and how to do that properly.
Representative Howerton.
Sorry, just can you clarify, how do you mark those?
So yeah, you really just need to. You could have a restricted folder. There's not a set. This is how you mark it. This is where you put it kind of guideline. It's just making sure that a header or a footer, like Representative Carpenter was saying restricted information, or you could have a folder you create in your inbox for restricted information that goes in there, and then you can choose to protect that folder different ways through Outlook as far as encrypting it. Or you could even pull all of that restricted information off of your Outlook account and only save it on your computer in an encrypted folder or on an encrypted drive. As long as that information is stored encrypted, it's fine, and it will technically be stored encrypted with your Outlook. But since other people have delegated access to your mailbox, it's a good idea to label that information. And in general, it's just a good idea to label that information so you kind of get an idea of where you want to kind of silo your information as far as, when you're trying to protect yourself or your personal things, what information do I need to protect more than other information? So even though I don't have state classifications, I have that silo on my personal computer where if somebody were to get in, they could access this information easily because I don't care if anybody gets it, but bank account information, tax information, I have that behind a bunch of different stuff. So even if they got in through one layer of security, they wouldn't be able to access any of that information. If that kind of makes sense and answers your question, I hope. So
I have a quick question. How are we encrypting them ourselves on a folder on our computer?
It's
Do that? Okay.
Yeah, we can walk you through the process, but essentially it's a Microsoft Windows thing. It's right-clicking on the folder, and then there'll be a protection option on there, and then you can encrypt that. Same with PDF files. Your committee assistants will have access to the Adobe Pro licensing, which will give them the ability, if you want to encrypt any PDF files, to protect those files with a password if you feel necessary. We have a lot of different tools for that. Just give us a call and we'll walk you through the different things, encrypting your emails if you'd like to do that, and PDF documents, Word documents, files, everything like that.
So I don't want to interrupt you again, but so would a program like Dropbox be a good place to keep things? Is that enough security because I know that my accountant sends everything through Dropbox.
So it's secure via your normal security protocols, username, password, everything like that. If they have your user, it's one of those things where if they have your username and password and you haven't put some extra password protection on the files, they can just get in there with your username and password. So another reason not to reuse that password anywhere, because if they get in one place, then they can get into your Dropbox too. And then last, we only want to access restricted data when necessary. So if you don't have a reason to get into data that's classified as restricted, just leave it alone. The more you mess with it, the more chances there are that somebody's going to see it, somebody's going to see you doing it. And one of the big points on this that I wanted to put out this year, because I've seen it a lot, is I want to encourage OAs and CAs and yourselves not to post any phone rosters that have your personal cell phone numbers on them, unless you're okay with giving your personal cell phone number out to anybody in the public. There are a lot of visitors to your offices. There are a lot of visitors to the OAs and CAs offices. And a lot of times we'll see phone rosters out that will have the listed numbers as well as mobile numbers for the legislators. We at KLOIS consider that restricted use information because we don't know how many of you are giving out your cell phone numbers. So if you see a phone roster out and you don't want your information put out, make sure you get that taken down, or just don't put those up yourselves, because like I said, somebody could walk into that office for 10 seconds, snap a picture of that phone roster, and then they have your personal cell phone number. And we want to avoid that as much as possible. Again, unless you're planning on putting it out there, that's up to you guys. But from our standpoint, we don't want that information getting put out there. All right, so we also want to ensure that information is properly classified, which that matrix helps with. Do not discuss or display restricted information in the open. So this has a lot to do with crosstalk. So you'll get your OAs and CAs talking, or you may hear another legislator talking somewhere in the halls. We want to kind of discourage that. We want to discourage gossip and crosstalk, because that technically is unauthorized use of information if you hear somebody talking and then use that information in another context. So we want to avoid that whenever possible. We also want to make sure that only authorized individuals can see private or restricted information during transmission. This has to do with encrypting your emails and things like that. Any private or restricted documents should be stored in a locked drawer and in a locked room. So the easy one, don't leave restricted information or private information out on your desk. You want to put that in your drawer, lock your drawer, and of course you're going to lock your office door when you leave, and then your outer office door is going to be locked as well. That'll give you maximum protection for your physical documents. Do not store your restricted information on personal devices unless authorized. Do not send restricted information via any electronic means unless encrypted. And any records destruction should be done in accordance with the Kansas Records Retention Schedule. Now, I could try to go over all that with you. That's immensely huge. I don't know if anybody's ever been looking at it. There'll be a copy of the slideshow provided, and that's the website with the retention schedules. And just to kind of give a little briefing on that, it's different for every single kind of communication as far as electronic, mail, and also depending on who you're talking to and what the content of the communication is. So if you have any questions on destruction, this includes deleting emails if it has to do with official business, because those can be taken with core requests or anything like that. You can refer to that retention schedule, and that'll walk you through every single specific situation. So physical security best practices. This is another big one that I've seen a lot as a tech last year and kind of walking around this year. Don't leave your keys, access badges, or sensitive documents laying around. Now, you may not consider leaving a key to your office in a place you've hidden it for your OA or CA as laying around, but it is. You don't know what's going to happen to that object you put it under, behind, over, into. Maybe janitorial staff knocks it over, doesn't notice. Now your key's on the floor. Maybe somebody's, a bad actor is in the building and is looking for that stuff. So we don't want to leave those laying around. I've seen badges laying around too, not anybody specific, but we want to make sure those badges stay on your person at all time. And another big one, which I'm guilty of a lot, and I really try not to do, it just makes me feel really rude. I grew up with you open the door for somebody. Don't piggyback when entering the building. Everyone's badge needs to be scanned. There's a reason we have the security door. And like I said, I will come in, there'll be somebody right behind me, and I'll want to let them in. But, and I have to stop myself and say they need to scan their badge. Now, there's another reason for that, just besides the physical security, that also gives KHP a rough count of how many people are in the building and who is in the building. Understandably, they don't scan when we go out. Maybe that's something we should start doing so they know. But if there is an incident, they'll be able to say, Representative Wassinger, Representative Carpenter, they were in the building this morning, so we know we need to look for them in the case of any kind of security incident. Or we have roughly 100 people in the building right now. that have scanned their badges in, we need to look for roughly 100 people. So we want to make sure, and when we piggyback and somebody doesn't scan their badge, then we end up with 150 people in the building, and KHP only knows there's 100. We also want to make sure that you lock your workstation anytime you will be away for any amount of time. Workstation referring to your laptop. What I like to say about this is if you can't see it, lock it. Even if you're gonna leave your office to grab a copy, lock your workstation. Again, we are in an age where all somebody needs is a couple seconds to snap a picture on their phone, and they've got whatever information they want. And it's just, again, your number one point of failure is people. And when you have an open workstation exposed to people everywhere, you just don't know what kind of information they're going to see or what their intentions are with your information. So if you can't see your workstation, make sure you lock that. And we're going to talk about some attacks and some malware now. So this is going to be the most common way anybody's going to get into your account, and that's social engineering, which is the utilization of human interaction to obtain or compromise information about either the legislature or its computer systems. This is a huge one. These would be your spam emails, your phishing emails, where they say, you have payroll information you need to put in, or you have training to do at work, come sign in. That's how they get in. And another really big one we're going to see a lot here, especially with the age of some of our OAs and CAs and the overall demographic in the Capitol. They call it a grandchild scheme. So essentially that's where you get a text from somebody claiming to be a family member who says, I'm in jail, I need you to bail me out. I'm hungry, I need food, I need gas. And they say, send it to my Cash App, send it to my PayPal, send it to my Venmo. Always verify. I'm not saying don't help your family members because they may be in need, but before you send anything out, any money, any kind of information, contact somebody who would know that family member or that family member themselves and verify that they are in trouble at a trusted contact number that you know. It's just good practice for everyday life, good practice for anything you run into here is just never ever give out your information. Verify. As far as KLOIS is concerned, we will never request any information from you via phone or email. If we need any personal information, password information, anything like that, we will get it in person. We will use it in your presence, and we will not write it down, anything like that. So if you ever receive an email from us, and I know the same is true for LAS, don't put in your personal information. We will get that from you in person. So this, kind of going back into the phishing thing, this is the fraudulent practice of sending communications claiming to be from a trusted source. We've already seen a couple really good spoofs this session where it's been from an actual las.ks.gov email account with, a letter or two slightly changed. So, it's hard to look out for these things, but look out for spelling errors. Look out for, the punctuation in your domains. Yes, sir.
Yes, Representative Penn.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A quick question. When it comes to the phishing and those links that are in there, are they still, is there prohibition, rather, what is I'm looking for? The previewing that you have, excuse me, the previewing function for your emails, and it automatically pulls that portion up. Does that trigger the phishing email, or do you have to click on the link?
So a preview generally won't, but we have it set here. Well, I shouldn't say it generally won't. It depends on the type of malware and how that's scripted or how it's coded. It could. There's no way to tell. Usually when Outlook will open an email, it will open it not on your local machine. It will open it on a Microsoft server for that preview because that's essentially where the message is stored. So then it has to go through Microsoft security to get to your information. So it's generally safe. But we do have that. The only time files will be previewed or links or attachments are allowed to be opened is if they come from an internal source here within the legislature based on our email security settings.
Okay. And that's why we get those notes from you saying quarantine.
Correct. Yes, sir.
I just want to make sure because I know a lot of folks have their windows automatically open to an automatic preview of emails and don't want them to suffer from phishing or whaling.
Yes, sir. Yeah, that won't open in the local environment. That'll open on the secure Microsoft server.
Representative Carpenter.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I think this has been brought up at NIT, but I haven't had any conversations with folks who have been involved with this so far. But when I get emails from the Adjutant General's office, from the .mil address, they come through as attachments, and I have to open up that attachment just to read what they sent me. It doesn't come through as a normal email. Is there any way that we can try to facilitate that to where it does come through as a normal email? Because whenever they try to attach documents, since it's coming across as an attachment, the attached documents failed to come across. So what are we doing to fix that issue?
So on a larger scale, we can look at the .mil domain as adding that. That'd be something we'd have to test out just to make sure we don't get any bad emails. But on a smaller scale, for individual inboxes, if you're receiving something from a specific sender and they're going to send, you can add them to your safe sender list or your white list on Outlook, and that will allow their emails to come through even through the Ironport security, because it essentially lets that whole conflagration of devices and equipment and settings know I trust this person, and they're going to be sending me emails, so I need to get them. All right. So phishing is the most common form of cybercrime and data breaches, with an estimated 3.4 billion phishing emails sent daily, and $44.2 million were stolen via phishing attack in 2021. And that's the last year the monetary data is available for sure. And that's only increasing. So with this, the big takeaway from this on the phishing emails is do not click on links you receive in an email. The exceptions would be if, say, Representative Riley told Representative Droege he was going to be sending him an email with a link, and you receive that email within 5-10 minutes, go ahead and click on it. You know it's coming, you know it's safe. Anything else, don't click on it. If you think it may be valid, the best practice is to go to Google or Trend ID Microprotection, whatever kind of extension you may have on your personal computer or your work computer, and check that link. You can run that link essentially through a security check on Google or through different tools, and it will tell you whether or not that link is malicious or whether it's a valid link. And these tools that Google has and different places have, all they do is collect this threat data. So it's not 100%, but it's going to get you a lot safer, because if it's a legitimate link and you Google it, it should pop up for your first Google search result. You can click on it and you can go through there. But if you receive it via email, text message, anything like that, do not click on it as a best practice. If you have any questions, contact us. We'll take a look at it for you. And same thing with any emails you receive. If there's something weird about an email, whether you think it's the spelling or the content or the domain it's coming from, contact us and we'll come up and we'll take a look at it, and we will verify that it's good to go, or that it is bad, and we'll take care of it from there.
Representative Howerton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So just to clarify, on the phishing emails, it's not necessarily bad to open the emails, just don't click on the link.
Yeah, so most of the droppers nowadays are going to be when you download an attachment or actually click on. So viruses and worms delivered via email used to be a lot more common that way, when you'd click on a link in an email. Now really what they're trying to do is gain access to your system somehow. So that link will take you to something that allows them to start tracking you, mapping your network, mapping the system, looking at your drives, things like that. And through there, they'll find a way to access that system, essentially. So, or they'll ask you for information, saying you need to log into this, you need to log into that, or log in with your state account. That's how they're looking to get in. So it does still happen, but it's a lot less common. But yes, you do have to essentially download. For the majority of them, you have to download the attachment to see it, not just open the message.
So I have not done this, but what if that happens and somebody clicks on a link? What are best practices there? Just contact you, or?
Yeah, best practices. So depending on how you feel about the situation. Contact us immediately, obviously. Then I would recommend disconnecting the device from the network immediately. So taking out your network cable and turning off the Wi-Fi. That way, if something has gotten on the computer and it's a worm, it can't propagate, it can't move itself through our network. And what we'll do, we'll take the computer, we'll scan it, which doesn't take a huge amount of time. We'll run some hash checks to make sure there aren't any hashes are essentially kind of the back end, how your operating system identifies files on the back end. It's a series of symbols, letters, numbers, things like that. And they're tied to specific things. So when we search for those hashes, there's specific hashes for malicious items. So we'll search for all that. We'll search through the files on your computer, scan it using your antivirus, everything like that. We'll check for any kind of abnormal functionality, and then once we've cleared it, we'll return it back to you as soon as we possibly can.
So we can just turn the computer off? Does it work that way?
No.
Okay, I'm just clarifying.
No, you wanna like I said,
Wi-Fi off.
turn Wi-Fi off, disconnect it from the network, and then you can turn it off. But we want to make sure that network connection is severed.
I think you can go ahead.
All right, so we got into a little bit of the malware right there. Essentially, malware is just malicious software that somebody puts on your computer. You've got your three main types, which are viruses, worms, and Trojans. They're all very different. Your virus does not spread itself around your computer or your network. That requires you to take action. So that's opening that attachment and then sending that attachment to two other people, or clicking on that link and forwarding that link. A virus isn't going to spread itself. It will just infect a single system. That's in contrast to a worm, which can spread itself around your network as much as it wants. So if you download that attachment and there's a worm attached, as soon as it's on your computer, it can start moving into your files, moving across the network, whatever it's designed to do, and it can infect other systems at the same time, which is why we want you to disconnect that network connectivity, kind of cut your computer off. And then Trojans are malware that are delivered through seemingly good software. So you're gonna, this is another thing you're gonna see a lot yourselves and with OAs and CAs on your personal phones and on your work computers. You'll go to a website and it'll say, your computer's slow. Click on this link because we'll increase your performance. Or your phone has 124 viruses, or your computer has 124 viruses. Click here and we'll get rid of them all for you. That's always a scam. That's just a way to get spyware, adware, or anything like that onto your computer. There are no legitimate companies that perform those services that will attract you in that way by going to a website and having you click because there's 124 viruses on your computer. Or some of them are, you've just won $1 million, click on this link to download an app and you can have access to it. Those are all Trojans. They get you to download a piece of software you think is going to do one thing, and it's actually running malicious software on your computer. Now, the most common type of malicious software you're going to see nowadays is going to be ransomware. It's one of the largest malware threats, and that's essentially when any files or anything like that on your system is encrypted or locked, and you have to pay the bad actor to get access to those files. Now, the bad thing about that is they're bad actors. Obviously, they broke into your computer. You give them, the state pays them $1 million. Well, what's to say they haven't put something, in the back end that's gonna, hit 6 months. So you pay them the $1 million. 6 months later, something hits. You're encrypted again. You pay them again. It's just a process. That's why that they'll keep going through and going through. That's why we really want to make sure we keep that ransomware and that malware off of there, and we keep people aware. Ransomware attacks against the government sector have risen exponentially since 2018. So currently, ransomware attacks against the government sector, especially state governments, are third nationally. And I think I've mentioned this before, but this tends to be because state and local governments may not have the budget to keep up with the latest technology or the training, or they're seen as easy targets because of the way things are structured. It may be kind of a fractured structure overall, or it's such a large structure where a lot of these smaller cities or counties aren't really taken care of as well, but they can still act as a pipeline into the main data system for the whole state. So, all right, so reporting. report any suspicious activity to your immediate supervisor, whoever that may be, and then us at the same time, which is bob.murphy@las.ks.gov or techstaff@las.ks.gov, and we will send someone up immediately, and we'll take care of that for you. And again, that's any suspicious activity. And anything you think may be strange, weird, emails, pop-ups, whatever it may be, that's what we're here for. We're here to make sure these things don't infect your computers and to take care of all of it. All right, so now we're going to go over one of the other handouts you have, which is the acceptable use policy. We're going to touch briefly on the important parts of this. This is going to be the guide on how you can use the information technology resources provided to you by the state of Kansas. This was ran through all the different divisions and approved by everybody. So we've had a lot of eyes on it, and we've taken a lot of care to make sure this is well crafted and covers everything we need it to cover. And I'm not going to read it word for word. You guys can do that, but I am going to go over the gist of it. So essentially, this provides all of you with how to use IT resources for staff, legislatures, and others in support of the legislative mission. We encourage civil discourse, tolerance, and respect for individuals. And in any use of electronic information resources, your laptops, your computers, your work phones should also meet those same expectations. KLOIS has the authority and responsibility to determine the acceptable use of IT resources for the legislature and the supporting legislative agencies, office, and departments. As users, you have the following responsibilities. We grant access to these resources with the expectation that they will be used in an ethical and lawful manner. So no law breaking, no looking up how to make napalm, no how to make a bomb, whatever it may be.
Porn.
Hacking into a computer, yeah. Keep all that stuff off of the state-issued computers. Hopefully you're not doing it in your personal lives either, but that's neither here nor there for me. So, you're responsible for using the IT resources appropriately to maintain the integrity of said resources, and where necessary, the privacy, confidentiality, and/or security of electronic information contained within. So essentially, that means don't do anything to the computers that could break them, whether that be software, whether that be taking them on a mountain climbing trek, keeping it in your backpack, and then dropping the backpack down the mountain. It is your responsibility to take care of the resources, and anything that could harm them, is against the rules. Also, do not loan, give out, or share with anyone else your access privileges that you have been granted. So this is your username and password. We covered that already, but don't give any of that out. And access to any of the IT resources that the state issues is only provided with proper authorization. So that's going to be your division directors, your CETO. They will provide authorization. Essentially, what this means is if you have a state-issued IT resource, and we have run into this before, and you do take your work home with you, please don't let your children or your grandchildren use the computer to play games. Don't loan it out to a friend, relative, anything like that. You'd be surprised, it has happened. Also, and this kind of goes into the fact that you are responsible for all activities on the computer while you are assigned for it. So if you do let someone else use it and they do something bad, we don't have anyone else to look at but you, because we don't know what you did with it. We just know that it's signed out to whoever it's signed out to. Don't try to circumvent any login procedures on anything in the network. This means don't try to get into anybody else's account, log into a computer you're not supposed to, whether that be your personal computer, a computer you find in the office, or anywhere else in the building. It's not an acceptable use of IT resources and may be a crime under federal, state, or local law. There's a couple different big federal crimes that it can be if you hack. There's the Wire Fraud Act, and then there's the, I can't remember the name of the other one, but it's essentially anything government is classified with a loss of up to $5,000, which is a minimum of 12 months in prison if you're convicted, and a $20,000 fine, I believe, up to 20 years in prison. And that's just for things you may not think about, like trying to log into someone's email account or get onto their computer. If for some reason it becomes an issue, it's a serious crime. So we want to avoid that at all costs. It's preferred that users utilize these resources to conduct only official business. Any official business information or records in personal or private email accounts or electronic devices must be disclosed in the event of a request for public records under the Kansas Open Records Act. So this means that if you have personal emails, so if you're using a personal email account to send official emails, if you have your official email on your personal phone and there is an open records request or e-discovery litigation for any reason, you will be compelled by the courts to turn over that device, that account, that information, whether it be personal or private, which is why we encourage the use of only your state email accounts to conduct official state business. Once you cross that line, there's no going back. And you know, you may think, well, how is anybody going to find out that I'm using my personal email account for official state business? They will. They'll look at everything. Once you get those digital investigators in there, you may say, I deleted it. You know, the truth be told, you could delete all you want off these computers, and somebody could go in and find it. So it's not really deleted. So we want to, again, encourage the use of your official state government account for official state government business. Just to, most of the reason is just to protect you. It keeps the records where they need to be, and it makes sure we don't accidentally lose anything. And it also helps with things like, you know, say we the legislature needs to prove HIPAA compliance for some reason, and for some reason, you know, Representative Younger is sending out information on his personal email account. Well, if Representative Wassinger says, "Oh yeah, we're HIPAA compliant. Here's all our documents," well, she doesn't know that Representative Younger is sending out this information, which may make us not compliant. And if somebody finds out, then it's a big hassle. It becomes, you know, fines, fees, everything like that. So we want to keep those records where we can get them and where we can see them. Moving on to the second page, we want to only use IT resources in a manner that does not interfere with, compromise, or harm the performance, functionality, or integrity of the resources, including adherence to policy, respect network capacity on the shared resources, and respect the copyright owners and copyright laws, everything like that. So essentially, what this means, no stream. We highly discourage streaming. We don't have the ability to totally block those websites. That's through OITs. So if somebody wants to get them blocked, not that I would really appreciate that, talk to OITs about it. But you know, I know March Madness goes on while we're here. A lot of stuff goes on, but we want to keep that network integrity going, especially on the government network. Now, the open network, that's public. If you want to stream on there and you can access it, that's fine. But if you're hooked up to the wire or are on the ks.gov Wi-Fi, don't stream your Netflix, Tubi, Freevee, Amazon, whatever the streaming service may be. We want to discourage that. Now, of course, if it's for official business, like you're watching something on the state YouTube channel or the state live and archive videos, it's perfectly fine. But if everybody is watching one of those and then all of a sudden somebody's watching Netflix, we never know. We could lose the bandwidth and we lose official business for a movie on Netflix. And then, of course, not pirating movies or music on your state computers is pretty obvious. Again, it's one of those situations that you'd think you never run into, but it has happened. Incidental personal use of IT resources, including email, is permitted, given it does not interfere with state operations, violate policies, or create an inappropriate atmosphere for employees. So essentially, if you check your emails on your state computer, it's fine, just as long as you're not checking an email with a HR inappropriate content that somebody may see. Again, we have to look out for, you know, there are going to be other people around. You never know what somebody's going to see. So we want to keep that content appropriate, and we also don't want it to interfere with our job duties. So if you get embroiled in a Twitter battle or an email battle with somebody and you're sending back and forth and instead of doing your work, we want to discourage that as well. We also don't want to do anything that could generate incremental and identifiable costs to the state. So that's, subscription services online, anything that could accidentally cause costs for the state that you're using your state IT resources for. We want to discourage that as well. Except in a purely incidental way, state IT resources may not be used in external activities except with prior authorization, and may never be authorized if these activities violate the state of Kansas, KLOS or ITEC policies and or regulations for official state business use as defined in KR 117.1 and amendments thereto. You also cannot use these IT resources for commercial purposes, personal financial gain, or to solicit support not otherwise authorized by the state of Kansas Legislative Division, KLOS, and our ITEC policies. So this is another big one. Trading stocks on your work computer, not okay. Accessing your personal business accounts to run your businesses, not okay. State issued resources, state business only. And then because of this year, this is another really huge one. Users may use electronic resources to exchange ideas and opinions, including those dealing with policy issues. However, state IT resources, including email, may not be used to support partisan political candidates, party fundraising, or causes. So, government email accounts, state computers cannot be used for campaigning, fundraising, anything like that. Those are things we need to keep on your personal devices, off the government network, on the open network if you're going to do it here, and away from our state IT resources. And that's a Kansas statute right there. Also, representing oneself as someone else without previous authorization is not considered responsible use of IT resources. These resources may not be used to engage in any conduct not protected by the First Amendment. Again, another one of those, you'd be surprised to hear it happened. We have had people legislators leave their laptops unlocked, and another legislator walked in and sent some emails from their account that were defamatory at one point in time. So, all these things, these aren't such, you say, well, why think about it? It's stuff that's happened. It's happened here, unfortunately. So the use of IT resources for activities deemed as inappropriate use are prohibited, and users who engage in inappropriate use may be subject to disciplinary action from their respective division director, including but not limited to, and these don't really apply to you, but we have run all of this also by the Senate president and the speaker, and they have approved of all the things for acceptable use. So I don't know how that works, with you all, but I assume if there's some kind of violation, you guys would have to talk to them about it. So, and I'm assuming that wouldn't be a pleasant conversation because I don't like talking to my boss about bad stuff. So, because IT resources are state-owned and maintained, we as KLOS have the responsibility to work with the appropriate staff to monitor, audit, and ensure the proper use of those resources. We do encourage a climate of trust and respect, and we don't normally read, monitor, or screen routine use of IT resources, but we have to monitor for resource misuse. And if we see anything, we may monitor at different times, any kind of equipment, peripherals, anything connected to the state network. So if you connect your personal device and there is, possibility of misuse, it can be monitored, not necessarily by us, but by KHP, KBI, whoever may be involved, and whatever's going on, depending on the severity of the situation. So essentially, the big takeaway here is there's no reasonable expectation of privacy on your state laptops. They're state resources. The state controls what happens to them. So if somebody were to come down with the authority and tell me you need to take everybody's laptop and go through it and look for these things, I would have to do that, and you would have to provide it.
Representative Penn.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Sir, that statement that you just made, there's no expectation of privacy on the government's devices. Does that hold true for the government's network as well? If we BYOD and attach a personal device to the network, is that expectation of privacy still on our private device?
So on the ks.gov network, no, because it's a official government use network. So it's kind of like a business use network. It's essentially when you sign the acceptable use policy. Now, OITS has a banner out somewhere that's supposed to tell you that when you log on to the government network. We've got to get that reactivated as well. But yeah, anything, now the open network is a different story. That's why we don't want to connect our personal devices to the government network, one of the reasons. Because if you do send something, again, we don't want to start getting into your personal business. And once you cross that line, it's not a decision that's up to me. It goes to the higher authority, whoever the legal authority is, or whatever that court of law is on whether or not they can compel you to turn over that information. Which is why we want to keep that separated and siloed. State information on state resources, personal information on personal resources. And anything personal connected to the open network. That way we don't have to worry about that stuff like that. So,
Representative Carpenter.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And it depends on if you'll allow this or not, but I guess there's been several comments that have been made, but my understanding of KORA, the Kansas Open Records Act, is that records that are kept, maintained by legislators are not subject to KORA. However, you just said that if anybody comes to you and says, we want all these legislators' records, give them to us now, you said you would give them to them.
So that would be a specific question for somebody more legal-minded than me, but the answer that I do know is that the definition of records is very vague and broad. And when you're talking official records kept by legislatures, are you talking, compared to what I'm talking if you speak to Representative Waskinger about something in committee, that is technically considered something that could be asked for in KORA, or anytime 2, 3 or more legislators meet that are on the same committee, that can technically be considered a committee meeting. So if it happens on official state resources, we would be compelled to provide that.
Thank you. I guess I would want to talk more with the revisor's office and figure out exactly what the legal ramifications of what you've just said are, because I don't necessarily know if all of that is completely accurate. Thank you.
Okay, no problem.
Okay. Anyone else?
All right, so enforcement.
Wait.
Oh, sorry.
No, you don't. Representative Oropesa.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just had a question. When you were talking about if we received an email during session, you would run up. What do we do when we're out of session? Is there a certain email that we should send it to that we feel like it's maybe questionable that your team would look at when we're physically not here?
Yeah, we're here all year. So yeah, just the tech staff at las.ks.gov or my email, or you can call down to the service desk. Well, I'll make sure all that contact information is made available. And like I said, we'll also be getting copies of the slideshow out to everybody. But yeah, we're any time of the year, anytime, day or night, even if it's after hours, email's obviously best after hours, but and we will take care of it for you.
I have one more question. And you're not able to remote into these computers and help us with any issues that we would have, correct?
Correct. We currently do not have remote capabilities. It is something we're looking into, but we haven't found a product for that yet. So,
Representative Robinson.
Thank you. So the legislators that are here and have been for several years, seasons, are the standard operating procedure that I'm hearing, they've all gone through this training already and are aware completely of all these walls and processes. And if they are or are not, is it possible to have updated or request consideration for an updated orientation to, because I don't know how you can remember all these things. It's overwhelming. And so I'm just curious if that makes, sometimes it's hard for me to communicate out loud what I'm trying to. So thank you.
Yes, Representative, that makes sense. So no, you're actually the first group of legislators to receive the training, and this is actually the first year this training has been here. I created it after I started. Acceptable use policy and everything like that. Alan can answer about any prior training.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Committee. Alan Wise, the Chief Information Technology Officer. We have done security training in the past. It's not been as extensive as this, but usually we do it during the orientation times for new members. So we plan on doing this more often and repeating it. We've talked with leadership, both the Speaker's office, Speaker Pro Tem Carpenter was in the discussion when I talked with the office, and also the President's office about a way to get all the members this year through this training. So they will get back to us and let us know the best way to do that, whether it could be in caucus, it could be in sessions that we schedule for the members, and we'll hopefully get leadership to encourage everybody to go through that training.
Representative Howerton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just curious about the remoting in. That's something that I do at my business. It's very simple. It's very cost effective. do we need legislation to do that, or can you just get those capabilities? Yeah.
We just don't have the software currently. Like I said, there are a couple different products that we're looking at. We just as to why it wasn't in place, I think it was just something that I didn't feel could be managed effectively at the time. There is legislation in place for that and policy, and like I said, we are looking at that to kick off something next summer probably. Again, we don't really want to mess with too much during session, but I know that's kind of been some of the plans as far as tech services, eventually getting to a point where we can just remote in for remote help.
Did you have?
Say on follow-up, I manage offices and we have about 100 computers. It's not hard. So I would hope we could do that a little bit sooner than that.
Madam
Yes.
Chair, may I follow up on
Absolutely.
that? You're correct. Accessing computers remotely is very easy. And scammers will do that to get access to people's computers and scam them out of money and things. I mean, you can do that through a web interface. What we want to do is make sure that we are using a system that is very secure, doesn't allow the systems to be easily compromised. So you have to be very careful about the software you choose and the procedures to do that. So we want to make sure that if we are getting into members' computers, that they are granting that access to help them, not just doing it randomly. So. Bottom line is we want to make sure we do it in a secure manner.
No, I do understand that. I manage personal tax return offices, so all of our access is very secure, and we are very aware of that. So, yeah.
All right. Anyone else? Okay.
All right. So just kind of concluding with that real quick, we will work with supporting legislative agencies, offices, and departments to establish, maintain, update, and enforce this policy. And any violation of such a policy by a user will first be brought to the attention of the appropriate division IT staff or their director. And we are establishing and maintaining a documented process to confirm that users have read, understand, and comply with this policy and or their local entity policy for acceptable use of IT resources at least annually. So that's what you'll see in front of you. There's another sheet of paper that is an acknowledgement that you have received this training. We've gone over the acceptable use policy and that you do understand everything that was covered. And so that's essentially the training. Like I said, it's very, very basic. And with that being said, I'd just like to put out there that, the 12 guidelines that must be covered will be covered, but I always love to hear feedback as far as what can be improved, areas you liked, areas you didn't like, where I can talk less, where I can talk more. We can always, you can always, in my opinion, always morph a training to kind of, a training should get better every time you give it. It's still going to have the same basic information, but there's better ways to deliver that information. So, I would, really appreciate your feedback, not necessarily right now if you want to, via email or however you'd like to do that, because I'd love to grow and improve, so.
Okay. Representative Turner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think I missed it earlier in your presentation when you were talking about password security. Did you suggest a secure place to keep all those? Because as you said, if you don't repeat them, you've got potentially 100 passwords.
Yeah, there's a lot of different apps. My personal favorite, and the one that we're kind of looking at here because it's just got so much extra functionality as far as data storage, secure data storage for other things, is Bitwarden. It's a great product. But you also have like LastPass, OnePass. There's a ton of different products on the market. But those are going to be your main ones: LastPass, OnePass, and Bitwarden, and they'll securely store as many passwords as you need, and also give you the option to autofill if you put that extension on your browser. So.
What was the first one? You say it really fast.
LastPass.
No,
Bitwarden.
Bitwarden.
Yes.
Warden, like a prison warden.
Correct. Yeah, BITWARDEN. And if you need any help with those, just give us a call, and we'll, again, anything IT related, we'll help you out with all that. So, Representative
Penn.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and great presentation today. Thank you for the training. I will just want to ask and get your druthers, you and Mr. Allen, if you think it is possible to replicate maybe some of the stuff that we saw in DoD with this type of training, where it's virtual, those vignettes, the models that they have that you can deploy to the laptop, the user logs in, takes the training, sits through the modules, 30 minutes, an hour, whatever it is, to go through all of the the different pieces, answer the questions, and spits out the certificate that you can track and know that all the members in, versus you physically having to deploy to do the training. I wonder if that's something that we could do. Can we, if there's a model out there on the market, already COTS, or if we can drag down the best of breed, if you will, from DoD. And then the other thing, maybe a little cheat sheet or cut sheet. I think, excuse me, I'm so sorry. We have these things that we received in our desk from the Capitol Police, like a little card at the desk and on the floor and everything to remind us of, certain things to do or phone numbers to contact. Maybe if there was something like that for some members that, like Representative Robinson said, this is a lot to remember. I don't know if there's a way to get a little small laminate or something that hits the high points that you really want to drive home and double foot stump on that members can keep at their desk. If there's something that you can see happening in that space that we can help you out with or authorize some budget or whatever, I'd be supportive of that as well. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. Representative. We do have a tool that we're in the testing phase on for awareness training that will be online, and we'll track all of this online. We also plan on eventually taping this training and making it available to everybody. So we will have those online tools rolling out here soon.
Okay, we have 3 other questions in this. Representative Robinson.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I understood what both of you said about this being one of the newer cybersecurity workshop trainings other than the orientation. Yeah. So is it possible to do like a need to know that the leadership and whatever, the Senate, the House, the 2 different parties figure out how to maybe put a calendar together for such a training so that, because people needed to know, and they may have not known and had this much time to review all the details, just so they can know that all these things that we're learning this morning need to be known.
Representative, I think Representative Carpenter has something to respond to your question.
If I may. Oh. Yeah. Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, so right now legislative leadership is looking at what we can do in a timeline as far as what's a reasonable rollout, whether talking to everybody in a caucus is the best solution. So we're currently working with the IT department to figure out what the best solution is to make sure that we get the most updated training out to the bodies and ultimately make it so that we can have less exposure on phishing attempts and other activity that will reduce our exposure to criminal elements in the future.
Representative Oropesa.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would also recommend as you're developing your models that you do some type of testing throughout the models. So after you learn the concept, then actually applying the concept and pictures, kind of examples of everything that you've talked about, how you talked about changing one word in the email and those types of things. I've done models like that, and it is very beneficial when you're learning this type of thing. I know we're all kind of at different levels in our technology base, so I would highly recommend that going forward as well.
Thank you, Representative. I just did want to make one more quick point about, to Representative Penn's comment and Representative Robinson's comment about the availability of this information. We are, again, working on a rollout, kind of testing a couple different products where all this information will be available and accessible to everyone. So it'll be online, more than likely via Teams. I've already kind of started building some sites for this kind of thing. It'll have all the policies, all of this training, different information, bulletins, updates, all sorts of cybersecurity stuff on there. So we're building it right now, and once we get it built, we'll look at it and everything like that. So
very exciting. We have Representative Droege.
I'm just kind of curious. You get a phishing, it's an obvious phishing line. The other day I had the speaker needs help doing something. Well, so do you want those all turned in
Yes, please, Representative. Essentially, they come from different domains, different IP addresses, things like that. So when we get it forwarded as an attachment, we can take the header of that email and put it into our email security product and block the different aspects we need to be able to block, so we reduce the number of emails from those bad senders.
Another part of that question is, are we getting anywhere? And if somebody is phishing, I'd just like to reach through and grab them and drag them back through the internet and have a personal discussion with them, but anywhere with that?
You'd be pretty frightening coming over the internet.
So it's when you look at proxies and VPNs and where some of these bad actors may be located, it's really, really difficult to find them and kind of push through. So the best that we can hope to do is block as many as possible.
And Arcito.
Yeah, so when we do get the phishing emails, we need to make sure they're forwarded as attachments. We've got a guide that we can email out. And essentially there's what I like to call the hamburger button, three dots, top right corner. And one of those options, after you click on that, is forward as attachment. You want to do that, and that sends it to us the proper way where we can get it blocked properly. Again, any questions, need any help with that, let us know. We can send out the guide that Tanner made and get that to you.
Okay. Representative Turner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Say, in another committee, I know there was an IT expert that mentioned don't take your devices outside of the U.S. Any thoughts on that in terms of both the laptop? I didn't hear a hard prohibition against taking it out or your own personal phone. Thank you.
So yeah, state-issued IT resources, I don't have the authority to tell you exactly what to do with them, but yeah, I would not ever recommend taking them outside of even the state of Kansas. We are deploying tools that will allow us to track those things. Outside of the U.S. is just a terrible idea. I don't like to use the term burner phone, but I think for travel outside of the United States, it's best to get a prepaid phone on a prepaid plan and not take your cell phone. Put only what you need on it. And then use that internationally, just because you don't know the security practices, procedures, the risk of theft is greater. I mean, you're just in an unknown environment, and you can't control any of the variables. So,
Representative Carpenter.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just to follow on to that, if any members are looking to travel outside the United States, we are going to start encouraging more security briefings before you do make that travel outside the United States. And so whether it's the KBI or an entity within the KBI that will give you that briefing to let you know what the high-level risks are of taking some of that technology outside the U.S. as well. So before you make those travel plans, please reach out to leadership, and we'll make sure you guys talk to the right folks before leaving. Thank you.
Good plan. Does anyone else have a question? I want to thank you for being here, and thank Alan. This was, and I obviously didn't make it clear that we were the first ones to get this training, so it's kind of exciting. And one of the purposes, I thought, of doing it in our committee first is that we give it out secondhand in terms of, you've got to look this up, you got to do this. This is really helpful. And talk up the issue of that we need to be more secure, and that we have ways to do that, and to make sure you utilize the IT department. And they obviously are giving us more tools to figure it out, so I appreciate that. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
If you fill out you want those handed in to you?
Correct, and we'll make copies and give you back the originals.
Oh, yeah, I don't need the original. Yes, so we'll just pass them down. We can pass them down to the ends, and then you can grab them. How about that? You don't have to wander around.
Sounds good, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay, we're getting short on time, and I just wanted to go over what we're going to do the next couple of weeks. I do not want to alarm KLRD or the revisers, but we are dividing the committee up for next week to have 2 subcommittees meet to discuss specific areas and try to get information so that we have a better idea of what we can do in terms of legislation to help secure the state of Kansas as a whole. And I will visit with everyone individually. Not everyone here necessarily individually. I'll get you the email, what your charge is. And we've named 2 committee chairs, Representative Turner and Representative Penn. And if there is a one side that you feel like you'd be more comfortable with, we can visit with that. But right now I just have, it's a very random, other than Representative Penn, who is really big and very knowledgeable with IT issues. So anyway, that will be next week. So we won't have formal committee. We will have subcommittee meetings. So I will get that sent out today. I tried to get it done last night. And as I was sitting there trying to ponder how I should do it best, my computer decided to do backslashes 5 billion times. So it went immediately down to IT, and apparently I have a new computer. Thank God for our committee assistant, Phyllis. She just grabbed it. She said, "You can't use this anymore," and ran downstairs. So you would have had it yesterday, and so I haven't had my laptop and haven't been into my office yet. So just, we're going to try to get that out, and if you have any questions, please let me know. The following week, there are a lot, I don't know how familiar some of the freshmen are with legislative post-audit. There's a legislative post-audit committee that directs legislative post-audit to do audits of different programs, whether it's a economic development program or a tax program. They go in and they do a deep dive and figure out if they're working or if they're not, and what is working, what isn't. Well, Katrin Osterhaus, I always want to say her name wrong, is going to come the following Monday from next week, and they've done numerous IT audits, and in fact, a new one is coming out today, but it is also restricted use. So we need to make sure that if we do that, we go into executive session, and that would be another issue that Bob would list as highly restricted. But she can come and give us an overview of the 2 audits that they've done, so you guys can get an idea of what they've looked at within the legislature. It does not include necessarily the 2 that she did. I don't think it includes so much the executive branch or the judiciary. I think it's more the legislature, but I'm speaking out of turn. So, she came back. Did you want to come up? I'm sorry, I saw you leave. I did not see you sneak back in. Thank you.
Yeah, too much coffee. So I can present the report that comes out today in public session. It is a public report. We have a very similar one already out there for you all to read that came out in July. So I can present both of those. In fact, actually, my staff will present them probably. We do have individual audits on a lot of executive agencies that I think I sent a list to. If you want individual agency reports, they will be confidential. Okay. So we can do those depending on time and which agencies you're interested in. We did audit the judiciary a couple of times. We do not audit the legislature, and that is because we have an independence issue with that. So we cannot audit our own branch, but we certainly have a list of a lot of other executive agencies.
I stand corrected. Thank you. I'm glad you're here. I literally did not see you come back in. So are there any other questions? Representative Penn.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On the heels of that, is there, I seem to remember there's some type of, under Comacora, if we wanted, you mentioned going into executive session, I think as a chair you can call for a closed session. I don't know what the parameters are, what the stipulations are for you to call that. Is that what you're referring to, that you would have to get some of those briefings in a closed session so it's not propagated out? Yes, ma'am.
And the revisers give you the proper information on what you should say and put it in a motion. So I don't know if we have to do that.
Okay,
currently, but if we do, then we will handle it as it comes along. Is there any other business to come before the committee? If not, thank you. I adjourn the committee.